So 2 inches below the as.
Good. 2 inches below the as is, or
2 inches above the trochanter.
2 inches above the trochanter, the pubic symphysis. Very good. On your modified cleaves, you center 1 inch above your pubic symphysis. 1 inch above your trochanter. So how far would that be from the as is?
3 inches.
Now that would be 3 inches from your as is. So really, all we're doing is we're taking this centering and going down 1 extra inch. Does that make sense?
Wait, what?
Right, so instead of 2 inches from the pubic symphysis, we only go 1 inch up from the pubic symphysis. Right, so, sorry.
You said.
Right. So if we have, right, so if you have the crest, right, if you have the pelvis, right, so pubic symphysis, as is, right? We said that earlier, the centering for the AP pelvis is here, right? 2 and 2. Now, instead, for this hip, we want to go only 1. Which means, how far are you from the as is?
Well, you said 1 above what?
The pubic symphysis.
Okay.
So you're 3 from
That's
the
right.
as
You're
is.
3 from the as is. How far are you from your original centering?
1 inch above.
What's the difference between?
Oh my gosh, that's confusing.
So if this is 2 inches,
No, yeah, I see, yeah.
and this is how many inches? 1 inch here, and then another
Inch?
1 inch here. That's right. So if you already have the centering for your pelvis, how far do you need to move to go here?
1 inch.
You just need to move 1 extra inch. So get your AP pelvis centering and just go 1 extra inch inferior. Does that make sense? Yes, Shamika?
What do you, so just what I can't do with the inches. What is it? So you just do how many inches? What's the total like for this one? What is it?
Okay, so it doesn't matter how you do it.
Right, okay.
Find your AP pelvis centering.
Okay.
Right, you can do 2 inches down from the as is.
Mhm.
You can do 2 inches up from the pubic symphysis. Right, doesn't matter, but find your pelvis centering.
Okay.
And then from there, go 1 inch down.
Okay. Okay.
Go 1 extra inch down. So now we are slightly closer to that pubic symphysis. We're closer to your hips because this is a bilateral hip exam. We are actually looking at the hips. We're not concerned with the pelvis as much anymore. So once we get our centering like this, now let's go ahead and frog the legs. So bend this leg, please. Okay, about 90 degrees. You don't want them to bend too much. Bend, 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 right? Too much. You don't need this. Just need a little bit. Okay. Same thing on this side. Bend the same amount. Right? You can even put the feet together. Right? So that it's easy to tell that they're bending the same amount. And then from here, the knees fall to the side about halfway. So comes out to the side. You can even put the bottom of your feet together. That makes things easier. Great. And the knees come down about halfway. You want them to be about the same height, right? So you don't want this to happen. You don't want this to happen, right? You want these to be about the same height. You don't want them too high. You don't want them too low. You want them just at about this height, right? 45 degrees. In this case, you can drop this down a tiny bit more. There you go. Marker at the top. And that's it. That is your bilateral hip. This is the modified cleaves, bilateral modified cleaves. So once we have this, hold your breath, X-ray, you can breathe, you can relax. Does that make sense? Okay. In clinic, you are not going to see this.
I was about to say.
And the reason is because in clinic, we don't do them bilateral, we do it unilateral. So they'll still do the same position, but we're only going to look at, for example, like one hip at a time. Right, so in clinic, you're more likely to see something like this instead. You do your AP pelvis and then you only look at one hip. Yes?
Do we still keep the 14 by 17? Because I've seen them where they change it to the 10 by 12.
Yes, so if you're only doing one hip, you will use the 10 by 12.
Okay.
The 14 by 17 is only because on the one we do here in lab, we're practicing getting both hips on one shot.
Okay. So for
Good
test out,
question.
we're gonna do a bilateral, not unilateral.
Correct. Test out will ask you for bilateral. But clinic, you're more likely to do unilateral. All right, great. You can relax your leg.
I always feel so like dumb in clinic because they're like, oh, have you tested out for this and this yet? And I'm like, yeah.